On the Taste of Lizzy Tea show today, I'm going to be showing you how to make the best homemade lasagna. Now this homemade lasagna isn't necessarily the easiest, but I hope that I can show you how to make a sauce from scratch with fresh herbs, a lasagna with 5 cheeses and 2 types of meat that your family will just love. Here's a trick. If you take 12 lasagna noodles and put them in a pan and then pour some hot water over them, you can let those sit while you are preparing your lasagna, and by the time you're ready to put the lasagna together, these noodles will be softened just a little bit and they'll cook the rest of the way in the oven with the lasagna, and it's one step that makes it just a little bit easier. So we're gonna set this aside. So for our sauce, we're gonna use 2 types of meat. We're gonna use ground chuck, and we're gonna use mild sweet Italian sausage. If you like spicier sausage, you can use a hot sausage to give flavor, but we like to use a mild sweet Italian sausage, and that sweet flavor really tastes really good. So I'm gonna use my meat chopper and chop that up just a little bit before it cooks too much. I'm gonna add 1 teaspoon of minced garlic and 1/2 cup of diced onion. You can choose to use a leaner meat if you would like, but we like the taste and the flavor that having a little bit of fat in the meat creates, which is why we use the 80-20 ground chuck. So while this is cooking, I'm gonna set this aside and allow that to brown before we add our other sauce ingredients. After the meat has completely browned, we're gonna go ahead and drain off any fat. And now it's time to add the rest of the ingredients for our delicious homemade sauce. The first thing to go in is 28 ounces of crushed tomatoes. Then we'll add 15 ounces of tomato sauce, 12 ounces of tomato paste. Then we'll add 1/4 cup of water, 2 tablespoons of sugar, 1/2 cup of freshly snipped basil. If you can at all possible get your hands on some fresh basil leaves, I highly recommend it being fresh. 1/2 teaspoon of fennel seeds, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of Italian seasoning, and then 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. The last thing you're gonna add is freshly snipped parsley. Again, I highly recommend using freshly snipped basil and parsley for this sauce. Now here's the thing with the sauce. It's best if it simmers for about 1.5 hours. So for this lasagna, you'll wanna make sure that you plan ahead and leave yourself enough time for this sauce to simmer. If you don't have time, you can also put it into your slow cooker and just set it to low and let it simmer for about 6 to 7 hours on low. Many times, just a hint, time-saving hint, I will make the sauce the day before I want to make the lasagna. That way, the sauce has had time to simmer and those flavors have had time to set and develop, and it really works well. It makes the day that you're gonna serve the lasagna just a little bit easier. So when your sauce is almost done simmering, it's time to get your cheeses ready. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna mix up our ricotta mixture. I've used 15 ounces of whole milk ricotta. Put it in a bowl, and I'm gonna crack 1 egg into the ricotta cheese. Have you ever thought about putting nutmeg in lasagna? We're gonna use freshly grated nutmeg. If you've never used freshly grated nutmeg in your pies or in your baking or in your lasagna, just get yourself some nutmeg and a little grater, and you just want a dash in there. And that's it. So we're gonna mix this together just until that egg yolk is all mixed in. The next type of cheese you wanna have ready is whole milk mozzarella. Shred your own if you can. So this is 1 pound of whole milk mozzarella. And then we want about 8 to 10 slices of provolone cheese. And then the last of the 5 cheeses freshly grated Romano and Parmesan cheeses. You'll want half a cup each. I recommend buying bricks and then using a grater to shred them yourself. So the first thing we're gonna do, we're gonna spray this pan with just a little bit of cooking spray, just to be sure the lasagna doesn't stick. Then we will put in 1.5 cups of our meat sauce on the bottom of the pan. If you made the meat sauce the day before, it's okay if it's cold. It shouldn't matter too much. Sometimes I'll take it out of the refrigerator a little bit early so it's not really, really cold. And then remember, we have our noodles. We are gonna put down 4 softened noodles. They do sell oven-ready lasagna noodles. You can use those if you'd like, but they tend to be a little bit more expensive. So we next put half of the ricotta mixture over the noodles. And it's a thick mixture, so it can be a little tricky to spread. Doesn't have to look pretty because it will taste delicious. Then we'll put on 2 cups of our freshly shredded mozzarella cheese. Then after that, it's time to add more sauce. 1.5 more cups of sauce goes over the mozzarella cheese. It is smelling so good. I wish you guys could smell this. So then it's time to add some of our freshly grated Romano and Parmesan cheese. About 1/3 of a cup is how much you'll want to put on at this point. Then you get to put on more noodles. 4 more noodles over this cheese, and then you'll put on the rest of the ricotta mixture. After our ricotta mixture, it's time to put on the provolone cheese. You're gonna layer these slices of provolone so that every piece of lasagna has some provolone cheese. Sometimes if they don't fit in my pan exactly right, I will cut the cheese in half and layer it in. After the Parmesan is on, let's add more meat sauce, 1.5 more cups. Spread it around and sprinkle with another 1/3 cup of your freshly grated Romano and Parmesan cheese. Then 4 more noodles. Now it's time for our final layer of spaghetti sauce. So we're just gonna dump the rest of this on top, spread this all around. You wanna make sure you have a big pan. This is a little bit larger than 9 by 13 because this pan is gonna be very full if you use just a 9 by 13 pan. We're gonna put on the last little bit of our mozzarella cheese, sprinkle the last little bit of shredded Parmesan and Romano, and it is ready to bake. How many of you have ever had a casserole that you cover and bake and the cheese sticks to the foil? Spray your foil with some cooking spray, then flip that over and cover the casserole. The cheese will not stick, it will stay on the casserole. Set the oven to 350 degrees, bake this for 25 to 30 minutes covered, and then we're gonna uncover it and we're gonna bake it for an additional 25 to 30 minutes. After your lasagna is done baking, you're gonna wanna let it cool for about 15 minutes. And this allows the lasagna just to set nicely so it's a little bit easier to slice. Although it's really hard to wait, and I know you're gonna just wanna dig in. This makes a pretty big batch of lasagna. It's great for serving at dinner parties. It'll feed about 10 to 12 people, depending on how hungry your party guests are. So if you're having a dinner party, I suggest serving this lasagna with, with a salad, with some garlic bread, with maybe some green beans or corn. Anything fresh is gonna taste delicious with this. So I think I'm gonna dig in. This recipe can be found on tasteoflizzytea.com. There is a link below. I hope you guys like this recipe, share it, and most importantly, make it for your family so they can enjoy it. Thanks for watching.